Hey everybody, Mr. West here. Found a fuselage tube design that I like, another one, and this one I came up with. It may be out there. I haven't seen this before. Of course, I haven't looked for it this way. I just put the idea on paper and then fleshed it out. So I did a video on how to build this this fuselage tube. And this is all the Dollar Tree. This is, except for the horizontal and vertical surfaces back there on the tail, this is all Dollar Tree. Those bits are the firm foam board, the expensive stuff that you'd find at Office Depot or places like that. The stuff that does not peel but is quite firm and stable, like in single layers, so I like to use that. So I'm in the process of here's a little video showing where I'm at with it. I wanted to make a real low profile, and inside I have about a 5/16 thick by 3/8 wood spar in there that's 48 inches long. And then this is a 2-panel wing here. So this is 60 inches. And the fuselage, pretty sure you can see that. Let me zoom in here. So I made a video showing how I put together a double tapered, so it's reducing in height towards the tail, and it's also reducing in width towards the tail. Let me shoot that. Going this way. Alright. Kudos to Ed over at Experimental Airlines again. He is the reason that he exposed this technique of folding this foam board, and it's just amazing. So following that same vein, folding techniques, I wanted a fuselage that had those finished rounded corners, but was not a square tube or a rectangular tube. I wanted to try something different, so I came up with this, and let me show you exactly what that looks like. Triangle, basically. I'll call it the triangle tube or triangle channel or something like that. So essentially it's basically a four-sided box that has the two legs that are normally joined as a seam down the bottom. Those two legs then are folded into each other, turned up inside of each other like that, and then hot glued together on the bottom. So it provides you that width on top to mate a wing to it, a camera deck. As you can see there, this was accidentally, two things accidentally occurred here. One, that the sample I made here in the tail, this section right here from behind that motor, you can see that little seam right there. That section towards the tail was a sample of scrap that I had. It ended up being 3 inches wide, 3.5 actually, on top. Very cool. And I was staring at that, and I was going, man, this is the tapered section just behind the motor on a relatively a moderate size aircraft. So I said, I'm just going to turn this into a plane. So I did, and there you have it. I've been wanting to make another arm and wing that was a smaller, thinner profile, so it's going to be definitely faster. Now you can see that speedier motor there on top. It's not a heavier motor. This bird will be quite a bit lighter, even though that fuselage is really long. And this is rough too right now, guys. Keep that in mind. This is not a finished product. It's not finished in length. But I have worked out battery, CG locations, and so on. And the wing is fixed, or is in position on the fuse where it will be when it's strapped in. So that part of it is decided and figured out. I've got a motor block there that's attached to the fuse. I'll show you how I did that. And I'll have to get with it here pretty quick because my battery's running low. So let me put this in the camera stand, tripod. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll break it down real quick. A couple of things I did that were different this time. So I put the camera in the nose. That will slide out like so, and you can see right up into the fuse there. You can see the batteries, and the neat thing is that these okay, so this is really random. Where I chopped this off when it was still in flat work had no planning whatsoever. I was just building a fuse, and I just figured that I would somehow work batteries in there. Well, it turns out where I cut it off is for these little 2200 milliamp batteries is just right. It's just perfect in height, and those batteries sit on that bottom beam in the bottom of the fuse there. And so that worked out marvelously, right? And a hatch typical of the foam board EA build. So you have this double fold right here at the bottom, which hot glues together fantastic, and then of course tapes over real nicely. And you can see the taper. You can see the taper occurring there up to the tail and all the way up to the tail there at the end. Let me adjust my camera a little bit here. Yeah, that's better. The tail section looks a little, the horizontal looks a little small, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scab on. Again, these are scrap pieces that I had laying around, and what I did is I put the two pieces together, and I was just going to use it as an example, a working example. This section right here on up was just an example piece, and I threw these tail section pieces on here and I was thinking, wow, that's actually shaping up really nice. I like how that went together. And I've got these skewers on here because I was doing some balance testing outside, and I wanted these horizontal and vertical surfaces to be fixed in location so that it didn't affect my balance. So kind of like the wind toss, or toss into the wind, gentle run and toss technique that I use to find proper CG. So the CG has been located and all that's real good. I have it marked on the inside. So anyway, I'll probably scab on some material right here just to give additional surface area. I believe that there is plenty of elevator function right here, and the rudder itself and the control surface is plenty. Alright, so what I did is I was trying to figure out how am I going to attach my rubber bands using the rubber band method. I'm going to keep it simple, right? So I figured this out, no problem. But in the front, the batteries are here and they're running all the way to the top. I don't have room for a skewer or a hold down here in the front. So I got to thinking that again, at the 99-cent store they sell this ball of rubber bands. It's cheap, and these rubber bands are Not the highest quality. They're brittle and they'll break down fast. So buy a few of those balls, put them in a Ziploc bag so they don't dry out. But this is what I did. I'll show you real quick. Is I just took the rubber bands and went around the fuse with the rubber bands here, like that. Make sense? So on a landing, this could get scuffed up. So I may end up putting like a skid plate here on the bottom. And the other thing too I thought about after I put this all together is that I could actually sandwich in a wood skid on the bottom, like a keel. While these two were apart, I could have sandwiched that in, or I could even stack on top of this and hot glue it in. Wouldn't be a very strong joint, but anyway, the point is that you simply just grab this rubber band in the middle, pull up on it, go over the wing, and there you have it. So here's the motor block. There's a good view of the motor block right there. And so it provides two things. Obviously, it's a motor block, and then a stop for the wing. So the wing butts up against here. In this case, I've simply hot glued it in place onto that deck. With that brace, shouldn't be a problem. This little guy doesn't provide a lot of torque or push, but what I did too to reinforce some of that, because it is flying out there a lot, I put a brace on top of the wing that when these two mate together, that this brace inside of here provides a pressure, a little bit of pressure up against that. And then of course I did my usual shroud for diverting the wind around that plate. A double skewer right here that are hot glued together, ran that through, and so I've got this battery space all the way to this skewer. Should be good to go. So when I start loading up, if I load up FPV gear on it, I'm going to get a little bit heavier in the nose. So the standard components are the Bloggy camera. So that weight is always figured into CG balancing. I always have it in the nose, and just always make a spot for it, because there's no point in not doing that. So your typical wing construction, Armin style, and then the triangular fuse. I'm definitely going to add some more surface, like I said, to the horizontal here, as it's definitely slightly underscaled, if you will. I'll get an all-up weight here pretty soon, as I've got quite a few other things to do with this. I need to put on some end caps, wingtip caps, and I need to put on my control surfaces, aileron control surfaces. So I played around with a couple different foils, trying to achieve semi-symmetrical, and I came up with one and ended up like this. Semi-symmetrical, so it has all kinds of applications, so it can be done. This is all foam. In the middle there you would have a wood spar, would be an ideal. You could even have a secondary load spar here. But this 60-inch wing, 60-inch span, a single pretty rigid spar here in the middle is sufficient. The carbon fiber arrow shafts, I wouldn't necessarily do the aluminum arrow shafts. They flex too much in that span. So I have a pair of them that I put together. They screw together very nicely with the inserts in them, and but they flex too much. They're just crazy flexible, super light, but crazy flexible. So I liked how this one turned out. So I hang on to these little samples. This, of course, is minus the control surfaces here. But anyway, it gets the point across, and this piece is all foam board. And honestly, I think that because these things go together as a unit like this probably would do all right. Without a spar, or if you just did like a 24-inch spar across the center area, and maybe just plugged it in, right here behind these two filler pieces. It doesn't have to go the full span of the wing. It can be just 24 inches to handle that middle section. In fact, if you did two of them in the middle section instead of one main, you could do a smaller one here in the front and a smaller one here in the back, and maybe even so that it rests on top of rests between these two pieces of foam here in the back. And with those two in there, having two spars in there, you have some connection points. If you needed to affix this down to your fuselage and you wanted to, instead of rubber bands, you could somehow use the spar material for that. So that was the semi-symmetrical. I'm not super pleased with how this nose turned out. I was actually going for this nose right here, and it didn't work. It didn't work the way I intended it. What I did here is, while it was still in flat work, is I creased the bare foam. There's no paper on the inside right here. Is I creased that bare foam with that arrow shaft, and I made an impression, and then I folded it over sharply, and I got that. And there's no skewer in there. There's no bamboo skewer like there is in here. So was going for that and didn't get it, and oh well. I'll try something. I'll try it again. I found my 99-cent store has been out of the foam board forever, and they're now out of the clear packing tape forever. And they did get another shipment of the duct tapes and things like that, which is pretty cool. Which reminds me I need to get some more. But the the Dollar Tree store has the clear packing tape, and it had 2 fresh cases of foam board. Oh my gosh, I had to buy $10 worth just right there. 10 sheets, can't go wrong. So I've been going crazy, building stuff. So what else is new? That's about it. Flew the FB drone today. Was crazy windy all day. In Southern California here, that blow coming from the west, and was going to go out there and catch the sunset. Well, I missed part of it. Anyway, the video is up. I don't need to tell you about it. And then what I've been doing too is I did this on the FB drone. Is I put this band of doubler only on the top section. When I covered the bottom too, I used this is the Dollar Tree, or excuse me, the 99-cent store duct tape, black and white. I ran out of the white, and I said, "Oh, okay. What am I going to do now? Oh, I'll just use black." I was planning on just covering it all in white on the bottom. So I like the two-tone on the bottom. That's gonna it's a nice contrast. Who knows, whatever, right? This is not a military-looking aircraft in any way. I'll probably dress the top in red or yellow or some crazy stuff like that. Also, I was over at Walmart, and they have the duct tape brand and all kinds of the several fluorescent colors. So I highly recommend you guys go to Walmart, check out their tape over there in the hardware section, and go from there. Anyway, so I do this doubler in the middle, and I start at the front, the leading edge right here, and I bevel cut on the sides and in the front, and I leave it square on the back when I do this plate. And what I have found is, when this plate is not here, and I always test flex my wings even before I start covering them. I want to test flex. I want to see how rigid or flexy they are. So I'll put a wingtip down and press on it in the middle and look at the surface, the skin, and see if it's wrinkling up anywhere. And sure enough, it always does that right on the glue joint there. It always wants to buckle a little bit on the glue joint. So I did this on the FB drone, and as soon as you put this on, it really changes. It really improves greatly the rigidity here in the midsection. And this is where all the energy is being transferred to, is this top skin, and it's attempting to compress it when you're loading up this plane and then you're doing some high bank or whatever. These wings are all transferring this load right to the middle here, and it wants to scissor, snap right in that middle. So having this section right here doubled up is a really good idea, I think, in my opinion. So I highly recommend that. Other than that, you know, I've been basically double taping. So I clear tape everything first, and then I put the duct tape, color tape on the outside. And also on the bottom, I pull a little tension here on the bottom when I run this. So I attach it at one end first, and then I go all the way to the other end with it not attached. And I pull some tension in it as I'm laying this tape out. And if I have an extra pair of hands, I'll have them push down slightly, about a ½ inch in the middle, so the tape's not touching. And then I attach it at the other end, this close end, and then I let it relax. So I pull some tension in it. So it's called preloading. In my opinion, in my terminology, or my idea of it, is called preloading the bottom. So when the wing is relaxed, it has a slight cup down, and when you flip it over, it's almost flattened out under its own weight. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's pretty close to neutral here. And so anyway, that helps with, so that it doesn't turn into a dihedral, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but you don't want that flex when you're not planning for it. That's kind of how I look at it. So if you want that flex, or you want that dihedral, then I would tension the top, preload the top first to create this preloaded, and it'll only help you in stability a little bit. Any dihedral wing is more stable than a flat wing, and so that's just a given. Almost all aircraft are built, I'm sure just about all aircraft are built with a dihedral to them, or if not a polyhedral, more than one. So anyway, moving on. So I'll get the electronics in this, get some wingtips on it, maybe shooting for a maiden, maybe middle of the week or something like that. I'm pretty hopeful that this little motor will do the job. That's a little Hobby People. Hobby People has basically 3 motors that are in there. I'll call them the brown box specials, or the black label, because the cans are all black. There's no labeling on them or anything, so I guess that's kind of a misnomer. But the point is, it's sort of generic looking. Hobby People name on the box, cardboard with a sticker on it, you know. And they have basically 3 motors that they use, and I have purchased all 3 of them and have been using them for a very long time, a couple of years at least. And I just love the heck out of them. So the largest motor is like a 60 size, 40 to 60 size motor, and that's the 4120/05, and it's a 700 and some change kV, 760 kV, and then the middle motor is the 2826/05, which is about a 900 plus kV, and then you have this little guy here. It's the 2212/05 or 04, I don't recall, but it's like I believe it's 1200 RPM or kV, and does real well for these smaller birds or lighter weight birds. So that little motor right there is excellent for like your deltas and things like that are of smaller, say 36 inch or less, that are not real loaded up. I tried it on my 60 inch over here, this delta wing, and it didn't like it. And I had a helicopter motor that I converted to drive a prop with a prop adapter on it. And that little heli motor with a 6.4 prop on it pushes that 60 inch 5-pound wing ripping. I mean, it moves it pretty fast. I think you guys saw that video. Yeah, so this is the hangar, and it is my living room. You're right. Kind of crazy, huh? Okay, so we'll cut it off there. Please post any questions, comments, thoughts about the triangular tube designs. Tell me what you think about that, and I'll have a maiden up here pretty soon and see how this bird will do. I mean, it's a lot of wing area. I didn't necessarily need to make it all that big. I made it a full 10 inch, which ends up like 9 3/4 overall. No, 9 3/4 cord, and then I'm adding 2 inch control surfaces to this one. Probably doesn't need all that much, and I may actually taper the trailing edge just so it's not a big rectangular plank look. Actually, I had intentions, I gotta be honest, I had intentions of this being a tapered. That's what I'm gonna work on next. This project kind of was born out of, doing this, trying to flesh out this triangular shape other than a rectangle tube or a square box tube. Fuselage, trying to be a little creative, right? Step out of the box, or don't even get in the box, right? Design something without even getting into the box. How about that? So, so while I was dinking around with this, I said, oh, I got to turn this into a plane. So I did, and that interrupted this thought. And this thought was that I was going to make 2 wing panels, and I was going to make them with that semi-symmetrical foil, and then I was going to taper the trailing edge, and then cut an angle on the center section so it would have a trailing leading edge, a tapering trailing edge, and the idea was that it was to be a real lightweight, sort of a speedy flyer, and use this tail section that I had on here. So what happened? And a front-mounted motor. And so what happened? Well, I kind of started leaning towards a floater, sort of almost glider-ish. And there you go. I could even add some, while these tips are still up, I could add some tapered wing tips on it, right? No, just stop. Anyway, I'll flesh out those that tapered look. Just being a little creative, a little out of the box. The only consideration with tapered, trailing, leading edge, and tapered is that you need to reduce the thickness as well as you go. And if you own a table saw, it's not a problem. Or if you use a straight edge on a piece of wood spar that you're going to use, you can do a nice taper on that. You just need to figure out the percent reduction at the tip, and that shouldn't be too hard either after a little trial and error. So you can do a tapered wing, and you can make it a dihedral, like a war